He was never supposed to survive. Not the temple. Not the fall. Not the silence between screams. And yet, there he stood, wrapped in cloth and mystery, eyes wide, like twin galaxies, brimming with forgotten pain. The Force clung to him, not as a tool, not as a destiny, but as a memory aching to be understood. We didn't rescue him. He rescued us from forgetting what the Force once meant. They called him a Jedi, because that's all they knew. Because names are easier than truths, and categories feel safer than questions. But Grogu didn't fit. He didn't obey. He didn't follow the map carved by those before him. He simply listened, moved, chose, and that terrified everyone who needed him to be something familiar. They offered him robes, titles, ancient wisdom drawn in ash. But he chose armor woven from love and companionship. He chose a voice that never commanded, only protected. And in that choice, something radical happened. A new kind of warrior was born, not in temples or training halls, but in the quiet of a starship, held together by belief. We watched him cradle the Force, like a songbird in a storm. Gentle, certain, untouched by the weight others placed upon it. While others swung sabers in defiance of darkness, Grogu simply breathed. Not to win, not to lead, but to feel. And maybe feeling is the greatest power of all. He wasn't raised to conquer, he was raised to remember. To remember the things forgotten by centuries of war and code. That the Force doesn't belong to the Jedi. That power without peace is just noise. That love is not a distraction, but the reason we fight it all. In this video, we explore why Grogu was never meant to be a Jedi, why his path may be the most important one we've seen in the Star Wars galaxy, and why in a universe of relics and ruins, his quiet rebellion might just be the hope we've been waiting for. From the moment he lifted that mud horn with a flick of his tiny hand, the galaxy leaned in closer. We called him a Jedi, crowned him with expectation, and painted his future with old prophecies. But Grogu never said he wanted that. He never chose a path, never asked to wear the robe or wield the blade. He just looked up with wide eyes and let the Force speak for him. What if we've been looking at him all wrong? What if Grogu isn't the heir to the Jedi legacy, but something newer, something unshaped? He doesn't fit into the mold of the temple, nor the creed of Mandalore. He doesn't follow the teachings like a disciple or obey the code like a soldier. He just feels, connects, and survives. Maybe that's the point. Maybe Grogu was meant to remind us that the Force doesn't belong to temples or rules, that it's not a weapon or a destiny, but a whisper inside the soul. We saw him choose a shirt over a lightsaber, a father over a cause, a home over history. That wasn't weakness, that was clarity. He walked away from Luke, not because he failed, but because he saw through it all. He saw a cycle repeating itself, a path paved with discipline, but littered with ghosts. The Jedi offered him knowledge, structure, control. But Grogu craved freedom, warmth, connection. And maybe that's what makes him dangerous. Not to others, but to ideas. To the myth that the Force must be mastered, that power demands training, that legacy must be earned through pain. Grogu challenges all of it with silence and choice. Why is it so hard for the galaxy to let go? To stop forcing the past onto something that never belongs to it? Grogu wasn't built in the image of Yoda. He's not a sequel, not a second chance. But we keep trying to drag him backward. The Jedi fell for a reason, and yet we keep trying to resurrect them through children who didn't ask for that burden. Grogu was stolen, hidden, hunted. He was traumatized before he ever spoke. And the first thing we do is try to train him. We wrap ancient dogma around him like armor, hoping it will protect him. But it only suffocates. The Force isn't a leash. It's not something to be caged or disciplined like a beast. Grogu doesn't need control. He needs understanding. Even the Mandalorians tried to shape him, to fit him into their fractured creed with rituals and helmets and loyalty oaths. But Grogu never swore to anything. He follows Din, not because of creed, but because of love. He was never meant to be a weapon for the next war. Not a Mandalorian warrior, not a Jedi Knight, not another soldier in someone else's fight. He was meant to be Grogu, and that should have been enough. He remembers more than he says, more than we'll ever know. Behind those eyes are flashes of fire, screams of the young, betrayal from those who swore to protect. Order 66 wasn't just a moment, it was the end of a world he barely understood. The temple wasn't just a place, it was a home, and it burned while he hid. Alone, scared, silent. We call him lucky for surviving, but survival comes at a cost. He carries a grief no one can heal, and yet we expect him to return to it, to rebuild what broke him, to walk through the ashes of his childhood and act like it never happened. We give him a saber and call it progress. But maybe it's just another wound. When Luke handed him that choice, it wasn't a gift, it was a cruel test. Pick the weapon of the dead or the heart of the living. How can a child choose between healing and heritage? Grogu walked away not out of defiance, but out of pain. Because sometimes love is the only answer when the past has nothing left to offer. And all he wanted was to be held again. There is something ancient in him, something untouched by time or training. He moves through the Force, not like a student, but like a melody. Instinctive, graceful, unchained. He doesn't bend the Force to his will. He listens. He lets it flow through him like breath, like heartbeat. No fear, no aggression, no hunger for control. Just harmony. In a galaxy obsessed with dominance and discipline, Grogu offers something sacred. Balance. Not the kind Jedi speak of in riddles, but a quiet, lived truth. He doesn't divide the Force into light and dark. He just exists within it. When he calms beasts or shields others with pure instinct, it's not magic, it's purpose. He doesn't need titles to be powerful. Doesn't need robes to be wise. He is the Force. Not as a soldier, not as a weapon, but as life. Soft, patient, and infinite. And that's something no academy could ever teach. Maybe Grogu is what the galaxy needs to begin again. Not to rebuild the Jedi, but to evolve beyond them. Not to erase the past, but to learn from it. To forge a future with open hands instead of clenched fists. He walks between worlds, not out of indecision, but because he sees value in both. The compassion of a father's love, the courage of a warrior's heart, the wisdom of a power that demands nothing. He blends strength with softness, silence with action. Din gave him something no master ever did: choice. And Grogu returned it with loyalty, not obedience. He's not a soldier following orders. He's a son choosing home. A soul who found his way not by being led, but by being loved. In that simple choice, there's a lesson the galaxy has forgotten. That power without love is hollow. That legacy without freedom is a cage. That growth begins with saying no. And sometimes the most powerful thing a warrior can do is walk away. Grogu is more than a Jedi, more than a Mandalorian. He's something new, something the Force has been waiting for. A light born not from tradition, but from truth. A beacon that shines, not by burning others, but by warming those around him. He doesn't rise from ashes, he grows through them. He doesn't destroy old ways, he outgrows them with quiet defiance. And maybe that's what scares the galaxy most. That he doesn't need to fight the past to leave it behind. The tragedy is that we keep trying to define him, to limit him, to fold him into stories that no longer serve the present. We are so afraid of what we don't understand that we'd rather rename it than embrace it. We want him to be a Jedi because we don't know what else to believe in. But Grogu resists definition. He slips through every label, every role, every prophecy. He is not the future of the Jedi. He is the end of needing Jedi at all, because he proves that peace doesn't require purity, that destiny doesn't require doctrine. In him, we see that the Force was never meant to be owned, that power was never meant to be divided between light and dark, that peace doesn't come from rules, it comes from release. And Grogu released it all. The robes, the codes, the expectations. He is not our weapon, not our savior, not our redemption arc. He is simply Grogu, and in that name lies the future. A future where identity isn't forged in fire, but found in stillness. Where legacy is not a burden, but a choice. So, let the Jedi go. Let the myths fade. Let the titles fall silent. Because Grogu was never meant to be a Jedi. He was meant to be free. And in that freedom lies the next story. One not of war or prophecy or return, but of peace, of presence, of possibility. He doesn't belong to the galaxy's past. He belongs to whatever comes after. And maybe, just maybe, that's where hope finally begins.